So I thought we'd go over some of the stuff that we're going to do tonight. And let's hit that button. So our agenda is we're going to go over a couple of bug enhancements. Undock the panel. I want to move something out of my way so I can see my screen if you guys don't mind. There. Okay. So we're going to go over some enhancements, some of the bug fixes I did, how to use some of the features, and then some Q&A from there. All right. So some of the enhancements I did is a couple new macros, which we'll go over. I updated some of the macros and some of the colors on them. I changed the way some of the settings files work. Added a 2D tree element. One of the issues people have always had with the matrix, and I made a matrix within a matrix, or a child matrix as I call it. We made some changes in the timing marks, made a lot of changes in the way the backup files work, and in our compile we decided to make a 64-bit release and a 32-bit release, as I'm sure you've all seen already. Some of the bug fixes are, I found a major bug with the sound, which was causing a lot of our issues that we've all seen for a while. Also added a default timing mark so that now you don't have to put a timing mark right in the beginning. It automatically works. Made major bug fix with the log files, which we'll be going over that. One of the things that I noticed is when the application would throw from this bug sound, that you would tend to turn LightShow Pro back on. Well, you'd have two versions of LightShow Pro running and you wouldn't even know it. So I put code in there to make it what we call a singleton, which means only one app can work at a time. I found some speed issues and enhanced some of the bugs around them, so it should run a little faster. And then finally Ryan found some bugs and fixed them, going with the exporting of some of the stuff, of your sequences, I should say. All right. Come on. Go. So let's get started. All right, I opened up the chat window. If anyone has any questions, just raise your hand, and I should see it down here, where I just wrote down here. All right, so let's create a new sequence. I'm going to leave everything else default. I'm not going to put any timing intervals, and this time I'm not going to load my channels. And oh yeah, that was another little change I made, is I just put on a animated house instead of putting on a real house. All right. So as we all know, the first thing we need to do is drag in a controller. I'm kind of partial to doing everything E131 this year. All right, so guess we'll do a tree. All right, as we all know, for things to work, first thing I have to do is draw our images. So the first thing I'll show you is the tree. Yes. Okay, so we're going to go single. All right, so if you remember in 2.5, we had these four here where you could pick the wiring of the tree, and then you had the 3Ds. So I added these 2D ones too, and also one of the bugs that I found that I fixed was it used to be no matter what one of these you chose, your wiring would start from right to left. So channel 1 would be on the right side, and everything would go left. So we have fixed that, so I'm going to do it left to right. We're going to use some RGB strips. I'll put 18 of them on. So 18 strips, 150 on each. We're going to go wire from bottom to top and left to right on a flat 2D tree. Uh-oh. Look at that. I don't even remember what my own tree is. All right, hold on. Gotta bring on a calculator. $24. The teller is fixing someone else's, and that's where these numbers came from. There we go. All right, we have our tree matrix. So notice the first thing that changed, if anyone used the 2.5 version, notice it looks a little bit more flat, even though it's not, perfectly flat, but of course it's flat tree. All right, let's hit OK. We have our image. All right, so now let's go into our first macro. So macros, we'll start with what I changed in almost every macro. So if you remember before, you had these default colors from here up. One of the things that I never liked myself was that I couldn't pick out my own color. So I had added a in there, so now we can have just plain yellow ones. So they start at bright yellow and they go to a lower yellow. If we don't like yellow, yes, I will do a macro, a marquee. Don't worry, we'll go over all of them. Any change in the future that we can choose where the channels and strand 1 is on 3D tree? I don't understand your question. I mean, where number 1 starts? Yeah, because that's actually one of the bugs that we have found that we need to fix. But you can, when you lay out your tree, you can almost start at any place. Just when you see it on your screen, it might not be right where you think number 1 is. All right, so there's adding default color. This one, light wand, is a new one that we've done. So whenever we go to the circus, you always see the kids holding the lights and they're swinging it around in the darkness, and you see the lights kind of doing what you see here. Well, that was what I was trying, the effect I was trying to get. So one of the ones that I think looks best is doing rainbow, and then you get the different colors. So see, as you slow down with, because this is a mathematical calculation, the thinner ones go slower, the fatter ones go thicker. It's just the way it works. The length is how long that is. You see, that looks fairly cool, but notice we're starting here in the corner. And of course, we can make it go faster if we wanted to, but we're going to go slow. So arc 1, what I found out is each one of these is like a pixel on this screen. So if we move arc 1 to the middle, notice we should get a little bit of an arc look. See, now it's starting to get a little arc look to it. And if we slide that one back, stick with the straight, and with this one, you can kind of see it more, because now we're kind of arcing upwards. we can just play around, get different looks, and see what each one of these arcs do. 5 starts where it starts. So moving it to start more in the center of it, and 6 moved it down. Now, unfortunately, this time around, I didn't make it go any other direction other than just right to left. But that'll be something I plan on doing in the future. So this effect by itself, is probably more of something you're going to put behind, the way I look at it. It's not really one you're going to put on as your main effect. So there's it, and just like the others, you can change it to a solid color and just have yellow or whatever color you choose. So animation, no changes to it at all. Plasma, another one that I changed and put the solid color to. And same reason, because I didn't like to always have these. And I always liked the slime because the slime gave you the nice green. But then I said, well, if I want a darker green. So then I added it, so I said, all right, let's just pick out different colors. So this is the thing. I want to show you extensively in line art, so we'll go to macro, or the Marquee macro real quick. And by the way, all the others, you have solid colors, going right along with it. So Marquee, one of the bugs that I fixed with Marquee was some fonts that come with some printers act up in it. And I think I've narrowed it down to what fonts they are. So if anyone has a font that doesn't work, just choose a different font, but report to us what font it is so I can add it to it. So let's pick a color. And let's do stationery. Now I added these in as well, so that, especially if you're going to do a stationery, yep, you're going to see how to do it right now. Okay, so we're going to add Mary here in blue, okay? And now we're going to add another Marquee effect, because the cool thing about the layers is that you can add multiple effects to it. So let's add Christmas, and we're going to go stationary. This time we're going to go vertical text, okay? And let's choose the same font. All right, so there's not a very good font, as you can see, but let's link the two of them together. All right, now when you preview the two of them together, so now you can go back and play with the stuff to try to get everything, working good together. But see, you could just have your tree, in our case, just say Merry Christmas. And because we're using a tree, we might want Mary to be down lower, because up top, all the trees where all the lights get merged together. The other thing we can do is not use stationary and move this one left. It's going to go left. Now when you're moving stuff, now watch, it's going to jump in real quick. So notice that jump in? So at that point, you have to say, oh, no, I want you to start from over on the left side. So see, now it's a little bit smoother coming in. All right, so now let's go to Christmas. Instead of Christmas, we're going to have you go up. And same thing. Now watch, it'll jump. Okay, see that jump? That is because we're not telling it where to start. So now when we preview this, we should see Merry going left and Christmas going up. And if you have a professional edition, you can add in as many as you want along here. And the other thing you can do is, right now I have it with linear timings because, going from here to here. You could set it to go to audio timings, and everything will actually move a little bit more right along with the beat of the music. So for you Southerners, we'll add in one more. Oops. And we'll make this one be too dark. Too green. And we'll make it bigger. Now same thing, notice it's starting in the middle. Because we're coming left down, we want it to be starting left and top, and that gives us a little bit better of what we want. We'll link this one together as well. There we are, and then we have 3 lines going all at the same time. And if you want to make this even cooler, which is what, whoops, I don't want that one. We'll add yet another one. And let's just add let's add that one. And we're going to go up, down. And what we want to do on this one is we're just going to do this one on screen. So our color's not going to change. We're going to have red on the top and green on the bottom, which is what I think it'll be, or vice versa. Yep, right on top. All right, so now since we're linking it all together, our background of our tree in this case will stay. Oh. And anyone know why that happened? We need to make the color the first one. All right, oops. So now we have color first, and then the other stuff on top. So a lot of this is trial and error. You get to see what you like, and there we go. And because this is red and our font's red, it just kind of fades away. So now if we want to make this even cooler, we could do what I'm going to show you on the whole next one. And that one we'll actually put on our tree. So this line art one does all the same stuff that I've seen coming on out of other software out there. So the first thing I wanted to do is make my tree look spiral. So this by itself looks okay on a tree. It's not spectacular, but we do it with other things and it looks good. So we can take this, what I'm calling corkscrew up, and you can make it thicker. But then you can say, all right, I want to add in another line. We'll do 2 more lines. And this second line we're going to make yellow. Notice the first thing it did is it made it go the opposite direction. So, and I'll keep that one thin. And then we'll go to our third line. And we'll make this one blue. And notice it went back to the other direction. So you have the blue and the green. And then the color gradient allows us, first off, you see with just the green what's happening with the color gradient. And that's kind of cool in itself. But we'll go lawn green. Sounds good. All right, so the style on this color gradient affects which way the gradient is going. You see now the tree looks like it's going the other way. That one doesn't really look like it's doing anything. And then there's my favorite look where it's doing that. So let's make this real quick and see what it looks like on the tree. And this one does take a while to build. And while we're waiting, anyone have any questions so far? All right. So I'm assuming everyone on here has already used Lightshow Pro, but I'm going to point this out anyways. See the very faint gray lines right there? When we get to working in the grid, I'm going to show you something that I've noticed about these lines that were causing all of us issues. All right, so let's take a look at this. I will make sure I'm not on time. Oh, hold on. Well, very simple. The other thing that I discovered, now this computer has, it's a 64-bit, which is what I highly recommend you use with the sequencer, and actually probably with the scheduler too, because depending on how many channels you have, the 32-bit might not even work for you at all. But the other thing I've learned is this shows you much better at real time than the big virtualizer screen. Notice how much more smoother that looks than when we have it over here. So now, back to line art. So that was just one corkscrew going up. Okay, so now we can also have a corkscrew going down. So the corkscrew is going down, pretty much the same, than the top one. The difference, so you could do one on top of the other, just like we were doing with the text, where you could layer one, so you could have one going up, one going down, which is an interesting look. Now this one that I just chose to adjacent up, so right here, so we got one line. See this multiplier line? So what this does is just multiplies the lines all the way through. All right, so that's going to lean one way or lean to the other way. In the future, I actually hope to make this so that you can just adjust how far, so it doesn't just snap to the lean. And by the way, I want to circle back to something I was saying about the 64-bit. So this, my laptop here, which is my show computer and my sequencing computer, is a 64-bit with 8 gigs of RAM. I would consider that pretty much what you guys should start considering your minimum. So this one's an i7 with 8 gigs of RAM. I'm sure you can use an i5. You could probably use a little bit less. But what I have found, when I use my other computer, which is also 64-bit Windows 7, where this is Windows 8, but that's no different, it only has 4 gigs of RAM, and it has a real hard time running any of my sequences that I made on here. My show this year is just under 12,000 channels. I had plans on being more, but ended up just with that. When I try to open up one of my sequences, on this computer, there's 64 gig in size. This computer will take, I don't know, anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute to open. Where the other computer with 4 gigs of RAM, it takes almost 2 minutes to open, and I watch the hard drive like, hey. So as we all start with more and more channel counts like this, we have no choice but to get more powerful machines. So on the home page of LightshowPro.com, they're showing you exactly what we consider the minimum for both 32-bit and 64-bit. Keep in mind that the 32-bit will have a limit on how many channels you have because you have a memory issue with that 32-bit. The maximum memory is 4 gigs. Windows has a minimum of half a gig, so really you have a memory of 3.5 available to the Lightshow Pro, and if you have anything else running, you've lost some of that memory. But anyways, back to this. So we're going to make this. I was asked if I know what the channel limit is on 32-bit. Have not figured that out yet. It's more of a memory size. So I think someone's going to find out this year unless you already have 64-bit. So same thing, if I get a color gradient here, and I'll put the yellow in. So this one you can kind of see a little bit better, what each one does. So if we just have this one line on here going up, that's what our tree is going to look like. Let's just leave it at green for a minute, and I'm going to make it just so you can see it. So I have my mega tree set up and built on my basement floor, and when I run just what I'm going to show you right now, it's so cool looking. And then when I add in some of the other features, like doing, like I'm going to show you, have a one line going one way, one going the other way, it really gives it a cool looking effect. All right, so this one, you see there's the single line, just green, right? So now let's go back and let's add another line to it. All right, so let's do total lines 2. This time we're going to do line 2. Now see, when I added it, it's showing it that way. So it's on multiple, that's on single. Give it a little bit thicker, but let's put this one this way and change the color yellow. Okay, so they're pretty much the same thickness. All right, let's take a look at this one. So I'm not sure if everyone knows the difference between a macro and a transition effect. A macro is a program that is making the effect. So we physically program code to make the effect, where the transition, which is doing the same thing up on the layer, is actually taking a video, like an AVI of some sort, and just converts that video effect right onto whatever your matrix item is or whatever you're showing it on, in my case, the tree. So it's a big difference. I've had a couple people say to me they'd like to be able to put a macro on top of a transition. Someday we might be able to do that. Right now, because there's 2 separate code bases that do it, one basically being video code and the other one being regular old .NET code. there's just no way to marry them right now, but someday I think we'll get there. So there's the yellow and green top each other, not bad looking. And if we rewind this from start to finish, you see the difference, not that much difference when you put two of them on top of each other from doing this corkscrew to the straight lines. But the straight lines give you probably a little bit more, because you can also do this. So now we'll have a yellow and a green. And let's add one more. And we'll make this one a white. All right, so we're going to keep that one thin and the other two thick. By the way, one of the things that I tried to work on that unsuccessful, I might add, is on the Aussie forum, it was shown that if you click here at a certain time, that all of a sudden you see your timer just jump all the way across. I actually was looking at the code that makes that happen, and it didn't seem to speed it up when I did it, so actually you're better off just doing the click over here if you know that trick. But as you see, one of the bugs that I fixed was speeding things up, and you see this is building fairly quick in my opinion. This is what's slow, and this is something that we will be fixing next year, and the whole way to saving data. Yeah, so because we're going to change the way we're saving data next year, I think it'll save up the whole thing. Anyone who's a Lightorama user or a Vixen user or LSP user knows that the way that almost every single sequence out there saves it is in XML. We're going to leave that format to something a little more modern, which should speed everything up. If you don't have undo on, you could always delete this and then recreate it every time, but by putting the undo on, you have the ability to, when you're on the effects screen, hit undo. Without that, you don't have that ability to hit undo, so it's probably a good idea to keep it on. All right, so let's take a look at this one again. There's three of them on top. So now, let's have a little fun, and let's add color slider or plasma. First person to type one wins. Color slider it is. And I don't know if everyone saw what Ryan wrote, that we're looking to performing tasks much more efficiently. Asynchronous program. Asynchronous programming has come to light for us. We used to have to do task-based programming, where you told something to do something and you had to wait for a reply for it. The new way that we have to program, which you see this mainly in websites at this point, where you have an RSS feed, so you can now have, we now have the ability to have 5 different, 20 different things, whatever number, running all at the same time. If you're 64-bit, any number of things. If you're 32-bit, there actually is a limit to how many things you can run at a time because the processor just can't handle it. All right, so let's add our color slider. We'll use, I guess spectrum sounds good. All right, so let's see, that's going left. Let's go up. All right, so let's link them together. For those of you that don't know, if you don't link it together, this one runs. When it's done, this one runs. So that's why the linking comes in pretty handy. All right, so let's take a look at what we're going to see. Now, you don't have to do the preview macro to see what you're going to see, but this is what I wanted to show you. Just like I showed you before, I have color slider up as second, so that means it's the topmost, and that's not what we want. We want color slider to be underneath. So this time I'll just hit OK. Besides, you have to have a lot of patience to be a sequence. Be good at it. But anyone that's used Lightorama and is used to clicking over and over again in the grid has to appreciate how much better this is. All right, so see, there's you can see the color slider going up. Here, so you can see the color slider going up all at the same time. So see, and notice it actually changes the whole footprint when you go through. So other features that are not readily known by people is what you have up in here. So first off, I could have changed that color slider to a circle, and it would have been it would have looked like Saturn or some planet going up, you know, through the middle of it. But one of the cool things, so color slider, I'm going to change this one to source erase. I'm guessing on this, by the way, because I always do it, because I always forget which is which. And this one I'm going to do the source and we should get a lot different effect than what we think we're going to get. So there we go. So see, and that's just playing with one effect on there. We could have, there's paint in and paint out or something like that. That's another one that really gives it a cool looking effect. Now, as we get into these more elaborate effects, first thing you're going to notice, they're a little bit slower. So again, if you have a 32-bit machine, and in this case, I forgot how many channels we're doing, 24 strips, so 24 times, so 150 pixels. That actually gets, or it could take you a while to do. Good question. Only one way to find out. Well, actually, we'll do a 9,000 pixels. Just tell me what to add one, and I'll make another one to do it. Now, because we're online, I think it runs a little bit slower than it normally does for me, but it seems fairly quick. All right, so let's run that. So see, that gives it a whole different look and feel now. And that was just by turning on source erase on the first one and source and on the second. So one of the other features I want to show you is, like I said, so see how right now the timing marks are. And we all know in 2.5, we always had a hard time with the different colors of the timing grids. So see, because I changed it so the default timing grid is red instead of shared, now when you click on it, you're getting a whole row. So what I discovered when I was looking at some of the bugs and defects that people were telling me about is that a lot of them, when you tried to copy something, you were not copying where you thought you were actually copying a timing mark that was either generated or just not really what you thought you were at. So by putting the timing marks in and forcing it, now I'm forcing a red timing interval, okay? And do another one real quick right here. We'll do another line art, real quick one. All right, we'll add that real quick. So, John, back to your 9,000. So, when I turn on one of my sequences where everything's in the RGB layer, there's probably 10,000 channels there. And if on one of them, I actually am doing a color slider across the whole thing. And that one, before I fixed the speed, was taking, before I found the speed issue, I should say, so definitely before I fixed it. But that one was taking probably 3 to 5 minutes to run. So I have not tested it since I did the speed, but this one here that I'm showing used to take 30 seconds to build, and that's thing, let's just get it in 10 seconds. So now I'm going to add another timing mark here. Oops, look at that spot. Okay, the reason I put a timing mark there is now I can click here, and where I can click there. Notice this one should go all the way to the end because there's not another timing mark. So the timing mark now is what's up front. So these ones that are in behind, unless you are in shared mode, won't get caught by you if you're trying to copy that. So if we tried to copy this one, that one row, as I'm saying it goes just the opposite of what I thought I would do. So it copied, because I had it include timing marks, it copied the timing marks too, by the way. That's what just happened. And I have not found out why, but you see what just happened? That's a bug too that I need to find, and I haven't found it yet. That when I erased that, it erased my timing marks as well. Not touch. Auto blend. Cool. So I'm going to do an auto blend between the two. So without putting that timing mark in there, you can't do the auto blend. Okay, so that's important to know that because now we're working on a different timing mark, we can't do that. Come on. My mouse is starting to battery going bad. Yeah, David, I guess you're right. All right, so the sound effect. You should see a fill here, and then our line's going to go. All right, so in transitions, I did not change anything, but it's the same thing with transitions that I showed you before about playing with the timings. What you don't have in transitions that you have in macros is the ability to play with the mix. Hey, Ron, since I see you're on, do you remember what some of these others do? Let me see if I can. Hold on, let me find you. Let me turn your mic on.
He's unmuted.
There you are, Ron. Go ahead, Ron.
Pull your screen back up, Ken. Can I?
Yeah.
Most of them. Drop the mix real quick.
There you go.
Almost exclusively, the best ones to use are just like the ones I initially source and source erase. Now it takes a little time. The not source erase is good, but again, mask, merge paint. The best thing to do is take a third effect or even a second effect and use with source and source erase, and then just play with them. Color dodge, overlay, difference. Most of them are either very similar with each other, or they're almost worthless. But if you find with the right effect, then they could become very valuable. But it's, to go through. I'll be teaching a class here within the next couple of weeks and go through some of them. But it comes down to preference and the effect you're using. And one big key: play a lot with black and white photos, and when you're playing with black and white, say striped photos, that's a good opportunity to play with the colors if you use it with like slider. But I'll be teaching a class. I'll be having a class, but it just takes a little getting used to.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But there's a lot of power there that people don't realize.
All right, so I don't remember what else I needed to show you. Oh, yeah, here we go. Very important. So another big change is First, let me go to a folder. So anyone who used 2.5 knew how big this log file grew. And every day you sequenced, it got bigger. And every time you threw an exception, it got huge. And people like me with solid-state drives, that affects you when you start to fill this up. So the other thing that fills you up is, I'm going to go over these two. The other thing that would fill you up is all these backup files. And if you didn't get rid of them, you'd be filling your hard drive. So one of the things that Mike had me do is create these new folders. So we still have music still in the same spot. Imports is where I originally had stuff, so that's why you see stuff in mine. But one of the things that I changed was coming up with this My Late Show settings folder. So some of you might have noticed when you first installed it. So all the XML files that used to be stored inside the C program files in Minleon Late Show Pro folder now have all been moved here. So now, because they're here, when you do an upgrade, you're not going to lose your custom effects that you've made for yourself. So like patterns that you might have over in here in my patterns, transitions that you've created that are going to be here in my transition, they're all going to stay here, and you have a lot more use. Same thing with your matrices are going to be down, here, as opposed to overwriting them every time. So it's worked out very well, I think. So when you come here to this folder here, so I clicked on configuration, and under system, we have enable automatic file maintenance. That is on by default, okay? So you can shut it off. I delete my log file after 1 day, and I keep my backup files for 10. So you can do that all on your own. So whatever you decide you want to delete your backups, you can. One thing I forgot to mention in here is, give me 1 second, I'm going to show you something real quick. So see this is my user blends. So if you delete that user blend folder by mistake, or you make some kind of mistake that is not now causing Light Show Pro not to open, because this is XML, and if you don't use XML, then you're not, you could make a mistake in it really easy. So the other thing that happened is you can run 2.5 and 2.8 together. It used to just be C program files, LSP sequencer. Now we've added the version there, so now you can have both in at the same time. But you used to have to come in here and copy these things yourself before you did an upgrade. So that was one of the driving factors. So now, if you decide that you want to make some change in here, you can change it, but XML is, if you open the door, you have to close the door. I guess that's the basic way to say it. So this is opening the door, that's closing the door. This is opening the door, that's closing the door. So if you know what these mean, you can come in here and play with stuff and probably break Light Show Pro. And if you do, no big deal. You can just delete that. And the next time I start Light Show Pro up, it's going to copy that one and rename it as mine and put it up there. So it only happens, like I said, on startup, the copying. It happens when you install. The first thing it does is it looks to see if these are here. If these are here, then nothing happens. They stay. If they're not here, then it says, okay, do I need to copy them out of here? Well, if you don't have this folder yet, it won't copy them. But when you first start Light Show Pro, the first thing it does, it says, okay, are you here? And if they're not here, then they're copy and put them over here. So there's two ways that a file can get here, and that's either from setup or from just starting it up. And then anything else you want to put in here, all it looks at is the folders that I've already put here. So you guys that were using Nutcracker before, were you putting them into your patterns here, right? So if you were putting them into your patterns, and that was not it. Actually, were you guys putting, which file were you guys putting in? Was it my patterns or my macros? User patterns? So that's it, my user patterns. So it'll be the same one. You're just going to put them in here. And they'll just show up over here. So you guys that were doing it before, they're showing up in this part right here, right? Okay. Because I never used that. So. And then what else did I do? So one of the major bugs that I found was this right here. So we would, all of us, I don't care how good or bad you are at sequencing, you do this all the time. I found after the 10th time I did this that my sound would quit working. And because I was doing it on my development machine, I saw right where the issue was. And by the way, that was another one. If you went backwards, your sound would quit working. You'd end up throwing an exception, and Lightshow Pro would work. So I found that bug, and actually it was a memory leak was what was happening. And this was the number one thing that was causing Lightshow Pro to shut down. And because of that, I see you guys, some of you guys talking about the flying ahead. The flying ahead actually is because you have a fairly fast computer. But I think I have fixed it. And I'm using a regular Bluetooth mouse, so nothing special. And ever since I fixed the biggest, that's one of the big bugs that I found. Ever since I fixed a bug that Nate pointed me out to, I have had 0 issues with the driver. And that was just how slow Lightshow Pro seemed to do things. And since I fixed that, I can drag either way now, no problem. And I did not have any changes to any effects. I had some of the people talk about issues they were having with effects, and that's when I started figuring out that the 64-bit versus the 32-bit is a major difference. Because on my 32-bit machine that I use for practicing, or finding bugs, I could verify them. But I would come to this machine right now that we're on, and I couldn't verify any of the bugs. And this was one of the bugs that I showed you earlier where people were saying that they could not do the fill effect, by hitting autofill and just having it go from one to the other. I had no problem at all doing that. So just keep that in mind that if you have a 32-bit machine, you should start looking to upgrade. And the more memory, the merrier. So I think I've shown you everything new. Is everyone here? Let me look at the names. I recognize most of you, so everyone's really used Lightshow Pro. What I want to do is try to have a class for lighter RAMA users to try to get them over to Lightshow Pro. And I think it'd probably be a good one for Vixen users to see if we can get them using Light Shield Pro too. Any thoughts on that from anyone? Undo. You're like me, you're fixing bugs. Yeah, we will be, David. That's, I guarantee you. And I have found the issue. I see where it's doing it. And the other thing about copy and paste that I found is a lot of it has to do with this. So right now, a copy and paste is going to have a really hard time. And right now, a copy and paste is going to work almost perfect. So a lot has to do with, it's a mathematical calculation. And actually, you're right, it's because they use a solid grid. All right, I'm going to unmute everyone. All right, don't everyone talk at once. Anyone have any questions?
We'll appreciate it more tomorrow night. Dennis, you're ready.
Don't everyone speak up at once.
Darn kids. Darn kids.
I want to ask the question of everybody. Do you find these types of little forums valuable to you?
Or would you rather see it on a video?
I think this is more helpful.
Well,
So do I.
we're going to try it at this time for a while. If this time proves to be inconvenient to people, we may end up moving it to another day and maybe another time.
Yeah, right there's one of the biggest issues. Background sounds, you know. Sure. Happy to.
Hey, Ken, are you
Yeah.
finished?
You know, someone just asked if I could do a chaser. I'll do a chase real quick.
Okay,
If
I'm
I
going
can-
to mute it to get rid of the noise.
Yep. So Renee, one of the things that when I tried to show the chaser online before is my keystrokes didn't work. So I'm going to try it again. I was trying to show someone in a online chat last weekend. So let's see if it does it. All right, so I'm just going to leave it on 680. As always, you have to draw your channels first. And since I don't know this one off the top of my head, ooh, actually I should, shouldn't I? 680 divided by, would be 50 pixel strings. That didn't work. 680 divided by 60 pixels. Oops. I should have done something I knew. I think I'm going to. Give me 1 second. Let's do this in our head. $1,000. Anyone who's not a regular user, I would not recommend ever hitting yes on here. You're always better off hitting no. I should probably just take that away so you make sure you come here to draw. All right, so 1,000. I'm going to do 100. 100. I'll make this one wire this way. And uh-oh. Are you guys telling me I can't do math in my head? Hopefully you're making fun of me because I would be. Oh, the other thing I didn't show was a matrix and a matrix too. That just reminded me. All right, so let's add a and by the way, there is a timing mark here that you can't see that starts at 1 millisecond. And that fixed the issue where you used to have to put a timing mark right there. All right, let's see if I can do this. Nope. There we go. Just what I did is I clicked up there and the shift key at the same time. And we're just going to do that. I'll do a linear chase. Okay. And I'm not on, of course. To apply a blend. All right. Anyone want to tell me why it's not working?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why can't you start it in the first column?
What, over here?
Yes, over there.
I'm not sure if you can, but we can try. Yeah, I will. I didn't think it would. I usually create one for it. I'll put a color in there just since it's not working. Like I said, last time I tried one of these. Yeah. Last time I tried one of these online, I was having a hard time. But when I'm not online, it works fine. Ryan's making fun of me, guys. Okay, that worked. That worked. And that's not, I don't know why. Like I said, it seems to be whenever I do it online. Strange. got to be something with the way at the end of the line, but that's all you do. Just press Shift and drag to where you want to be. And it'll work for you because you won't be online. Oh, so by the way, you see I have this one open. That's in case anyone wants to send commands to like your EDM or something. You can put Windows commands inside here. You can turn on video. But, oops. So if I do create matrix in selected range, so there's all the matrices that I've saved in the last couple days. Well, here's the one we just did. Okay, I'm going to hit Edit, and notice we told this thing that how we told it to wire. Okay, but we're going to do a child matrix. So with this child matrix, call it child 1. We're going to start at row 1. Okay, no matter how you have it wired, this is row 1. Okay, and I'm going to end at row 10. So I'm going to go over 10. Actually, let's go 5. Easier. Okay, this is column 1. We're going to end at column, move right up. I'll end at column 5. So I should be 5 rows this way and 5 columns down. So now, here's my child matrix. I'll select it. And so notice instead of generating across the whole thing, it just generated in that one portion. So we could actually create a child inside that child, or we could create a whole bunch of other childs and just put the stuff wherever you wanted it to be. So this would come handy for, since trying to draw in this matrix, trying to draw in this one is would drive you nuts. That's the first thing you got to do is make it bigger. You notice when you make it bigger, you lose stuff. You know, so that was one of my driving factors for getting rid of it. And you're welcome, Renee. But it will work for you. Okay, so another one, the sono and amplitude effect. So very nice effect, by the way, especially the sono. So I'm going to insert another timing interval. Oops. Just click on the right things. All right, so I just added 12 intervals in here. So we're going to click on amplitude. Actually, I'll go sono. Second you click on these, did you notice, here, let me go back to on. So look over here, you see nothing there, right? So if I click on sono, it goes like that. And then if I right click and I say draw sonogram, so again I'm going to press the shift key. Oops. Come on. Okay, it's the control key, and then I'm just going to do that. I highlighted that. When I get done, notice that went to 1. So now if I go here and I say draw sonogram effect, we'll start E with yellow, E with red. Hit OK. So now it's going to ask me what I want. One of the things I've learned with Sonogram, or FX, or Effect, if you tell it to use your entire, in this case, 1,000 channels, this is hard to see. It'll still generate the stuff, but it's just hard to see. So you're almost better off getting it all set up on a smaller amount and then moving it. The sensitivity decides what you're going to see, intensity, how bright stuff will be. Just leave stuff right there, hit OK. So now on our matrix, what that look like? So you see it's just the top part of the matrix. But the cool part about it is it goes pretty much with the beat of the music just on its own. So it's a really nice little effect to have in the background for stuff. All right. Anything else from anyone? I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure. Ron, do you know the answer to John's question? We're still going to find you and unmute you. Go ahead, Ron.
Sorry about that. I was kind of watching a hockey game at the same time.
Yeah, that's all right.
What's the question?
What's the, here, I'll read it outright. If you had to import an AVI into your matrix, what's the longest seconds at 24 frames per second? I don't know the answer to that.
What's the longest you can create it?
Yeah, right. So can you do a 5-second one or a 30-second one or longer?
Well, it depends. I do them based on how long I'm going to use the effect for a lot of times, and it depends on how fast the AVI. If I'm going to span the movement in the video for 10 seconds, I'm almost always going to make it 10 or 15 frames per second that I'm going to use it. If it actually saves time generating if you, rather than using a real long AVI with 100 or 200 frames, if you want to use the same thing but over a shorter time span, it almost makes sense to shorten the level because it will generate a lot faster as well. But I've been messing around with the AVI files quite a lot lately myself and importing them into the Matrix Animator. I import them into there so I can then reuse them within macros and double layer them. So I'm not sure if that helps. 30 seconds and 15 frames per second, depending if it's huge, how big the grid is, it could become a pretty big file, though. Yeah, I do the same thing, and you can put bits and pieces together and that's another tool where you can do the autofill real well, is right between them if you have similar ones where they end and start.
All right. Anyone else? Yeah, it would unmute everyone, but everyone without a headset cause echoing. I think I showed.
I unmuted everybody. Sound like somebody is playing hockey. Ken, if that's it, do you want to call it an evening?
Ken, if that's it, do you want to call it an evening?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's anything else to go over.
All right. I want to thank everyone for attending this evening, and it will be up on the forum very shortly as a video, at least by tomorrow.
Here, I muted the one that was echoing. All right, thanks everyone.
All right. Good night, everybody.